Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Bleav In Bears podcast. As always, I'm your host, Sky Ditka Cruz. And today, we got ESPN's very own Pat the Designer. You can catch him. He's a podcast host for ESPN, The Breeze, and Locked On Podcast. So go check that out. Everything's Chicago sports related. This is the guy for it. What's up, Pat? How you doing, man?
What's going on, Sky? How you feeling, man?
Doing good, man. Doing good. I know you're probably tired from yesterday with the NBA draft and everything, but I'm glad you're joining me today, my guy.
We was up a little bit late, but that's all right. That's the goal. That's the dream, man.
Yeah, exactly. But this is a Chicago Bears podcast, and we have a lot to talk about. It is slow season right before training camp, but there is always stuff to talk about, as as content creators. But I just want to know, man, it's been a busy offseason, very eventful offseason for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
How did Ryan Poles do, man? How do you like the new look Chicago Bears, and what do you think the trajectory of this team is going forward?
Man, I'm gonna tell you, this team to me, just looking at Ryan Poles' aspect of it, I don't think we've had a leader like this since Papa Bear passed away. Like that. That's how much I believe that he really reshaped the Chicago Bears team in 2 years. I mean, this is a team made in his image, and it is confident and it is ready to go. And I think the one thing that I love about how he's gone about it is, right, he's had to make some tough decisions to put us in this position, but I don't think that anybody coming off of having the number 1 overall pick, selecting Caleb Williams, being able to still get Rome Odunze out of that would begrudge anywhere that we're at. And I was doing an episode yesterday with Dion Miller from ABC7, and we were talking about some of the trades that he's made to put us in position. And when you realize, right, he got rid of names like Khalil Mack and Roquan Smith, names that today Muzz would talk about as cornerstone pieces on a franchise, right? Khalil Mack coming off a 16.5 sack season. Roquan Smith was one of the, if not, probably one of the best linebackers in the NFL, top 5 for sure last season. You moved on from those guys to still go out and be able to build a really, really significant team that a lot of people think is going to take a serious leap in the NFL. I have to give him an A for this offseason. I have to give him an A for his tenure overall, because he has gone through the dark days of this team, rebuilding and reshaping everything that we've thought should be the right way to do something. He's normally going the opposite way in that. And you got to commend a guy for being able to say, listen, I'm willing to take the daggers in the public eye because I know I'll be getting the flowers on the other side of this thing.
Yeah, he's made a lot of tough, controversial decisions leading up to this point. But I love the direction this team is going, man, with all the choices he's made to either trade guys away or bring new guys in. But I want to talk about some of the new guys he brought in, Kevin Byard, Gerald Everett, DeAndre Swift, Keenan Allen, of course. And who do you think is going to make the biggest impact out of all the new guys that he's brought in?
It's so easy to go Keenan Allen there, right? It's so easy to go Keenan Allen because you know what he is as a player. I mean, 1,200 yards in 13 games last season. Probably could have been a 1,500-yard receiver last season if he had decided to come back. He said that, I could have come back from the injury, but we weren't playing for anything, and we knew we weren't playing for anything, so why come back? It's so easy to go Keenan Allen there, but the one name to me that I keep looking at, and I'm like, I think that's going to be a guy that's going to have a serious impact on this team, is Kevin Byard, and it may not always show up in the stat sheet, but to me, the fact that him and Jaquan Brisker are able to play in the box, out of the box, both kind of be interchangeable in how they're being utilized, I think that brings such an impact to this Bears defense as far as versatility. I think it makes the back end of this team so much more dangerous. And when you look at, right, like a lot of the guys that he brought in, you see, okay, this is what this guy's going to do, but I don't think that Kevin Byard is locked into anything being that safety opposite Jaquan Brisker because of how deep this DB room goes, because of how deep that back seven realistically is. Like, I think that he's going to be somebody who's going to be the underrated signing of the offseason. I'm really looking forward to see what he's going to be able to do. The other obvious name, like I said, of course, Keenan Allen, but DeAndre Swift is the other one that you really look at and you're like, I mean, it's going to be hard for him not to crack 1,000 yards in this offense. Like, that's the part that gets you excited, right? You start to see guys, you start to see where their fitness is. Like it's so different from years where we're like, okay, how does this guy accomplish success? How does this guy become good? How does this guy develop into whatever the player is, to then be able to look at that player and go, how is he not going to get 1,000 yards? How's he
real.
not? Like, I look at Caleb Williams literally coming into this season. I'm just like, I'm really trying to like rack my brain around, am I going to have to call this young man the greatest Bears quarterback of all time by the end of this season? Because I think it's going to be difficult to not crack 4,000 yards. I think it's going to be difficult to not crack 25 plus touchdowns. And if he keeps the interception ratio low, we might have to crown him really early in his career, dog. It's not a lot of history here.
Yeah, I feel like honestly, we're already jumping the gun and crowning him already, man. I cannot wait to see him
I'm
play.
I'm not there yet. I gotta see it.
I'm trying my hardest, Pat, to stay neutral. I've been burned in the past, just like you and other Chicago Bears fans. But I'm glad you brought up Kevin Byard, because I think one aspect that a lot of fans aren't taking account for is his leadership. You know, he comes in, fills in a spot. Sad to see Bojack go, of course, a homegrown guy that we drafted, but you know, he goes on. We bring in Kevin Byard. I love that addition. And DeAndre Swift, man, I think he's going to be such a great addition for this offense and for Caleb Williams, you know, a guy that he can dump it off to, a little security blanket when things get tough around him. So I love that addition. But, you know, there's still a lot of noise. A lot of people still want to bring in some new players. Connor Williams has been brought up. You know, we're still looking for a guy opposite of Montez Sweat. Do we bring back Yannick Ngakoue? Do we hit the trade market? You know, guys like Trey Hendrickson are out there, Jonathan Allen. We'll see what the Commanders do with him. But is there anybody out there that you still want the Bears to bring in, like any of those guys I listed, or somebody that we may not have our eye on?
I think the one you have to really focus in on, because of what he's coming off of and the discount that you can get. Remember, we heard that the Chicago Bears are looking for somebody opposite Montez Sweat on a bit of a discount. If you're going to go out and get Emmanuel Ogbah, you might as well just stick with DeMarcus Walker. Like, what are we really talking about here? Like, we don't need we're not paying guys just to pay them. Now, if you want to have depth, that's different. But if I'm going to go out and stack the depth chart, right, I want to have somebody who at least is, in my mind, you're talking about, there's a reason that I'm not giving Austin Booker, who the Bears selected in the 5th round, reps this season, right? To me, that's a guy like Yannick Ngakoue, because when I look at his game, even coming off of an injury, he's always been the other guy that can get 9 sacks. You never really look at Yannick on a defense and go, that's the guy. That's the number one. And last season, he was that for the Bears for half of the season. You brought in Montez Sweat. Immediately, we see that change. Immediately, we see that go in a direction where, oh, snap, we have a little bit of a dynamic here. Breaks his ankle. Now we're talking about, you know, he's out for the rest of the season. Do we want to bring him back? I think you want to bring a guy like Yannick back, because you're talking about him coming off of an ankle injury, which is not a ligament injury. There may be some ligament damage in there, but it's not a ligament injury. It's a bone. Bones heal, right? So I don't think there'll be any slow start to the season for him. I think he'll be pretty much ready to go coming back in if you're able to sign him at training camp. I think you also have to look at the fact that you're coming off of now an injury offseason, which off the previous offseason, teams didn't want to pay him what he was worth, which is why the Bears got him on what could be a little bit of a steal for 2 years ago of $10 million. Now you're talking about trying to get him back in here, saving even more money, maybe. Hey, listen, Yannick, come on in. We'll give you 14 over 2, because I think he's probably getting to that point where he wants to settle down and be a part of a defense long term. We'll give you 14 over 2. What would you say if you come back in on that? We'll give you some guarantees and some incentives and all of that stuff to make you happy in the long run. But I don't think that there's going to be teams beating down Yannick Ngakoue's door this season, because there weren't teams beating down his door last season, which is why the Chicago Bears were able to get him for such a cheap price. So if I was going to bring anybody in that's out there right now, I would say go out there and get Yannick Ngakoue. Now, as the season plays out, I've been one who said this on the Chicago Bears podcast. I've been one who said this on the Breeze. I don't think we get to next year's draft with that pick. Ryan Poles has a thing about trading picks, especially second-round picks. We've seen him do it 2 years in a row. He's gone out and he's added Chase Claypool, didn't work. He's gone out and he's added Montez Sweat, both for second-round picks. He's not afraid to move on from picks to add somebody who's an immediate impact. If this team is moving in the right direction, especially early in the season, by the time we get around that week 9 mark, and he feels that, you know, we're okay with what we got here on the defensive line, but I'd like to add something, don't be surprised if that second-round pick, that is the Panthers pick, is not here draft time next year.
Yeah, we know Ryan Poles, he's not scared to be aggressive or go after a guy if he knows it's going to help the Bears. But I'm glad you brought up Caleb earlier, because, you know, it's impossible to talk about the Bears without bringing up Caleb Williams.
Of course.
And I want to know, man, your realistic expectations. Because like I told you earlier, man, I'm trying my hardest, Pat. I'm trying my hardest to stay neutral, not jump the gun. But you see CJ Stroud, what he did last year with the Texans, and it gets you excited. You know, you have high expectations for this guy. You see the supporting cast, a team, a city that's been dying for a quarterback, man. But what do you think are his realistic expectations going into next year?
Listen, I expect the world and more from every quarterback that stands behind the Chicago Bears offensive line. You know what I mean? Like that's
Sure.
that. Now we always have to reel in our realistic expectations based on the team that's around him. But I expected a ton from Justin Fields last year, and he didn't deliver. I expected a ton from whoever was going to play quarterback this season, and I hope that they deliver. And here's my thing: it's okay. I feel like as Bears fans, whenever I hear a Caleb Williams prediction, it's always, oh, if he gives us like 3,400 yards, 600 rushing, and then you're able to go out there and get 18 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, that's a good season. Yeah, that would be a good season if it wasn't for the fact that he had Keenan Allen, that he has DJ Moore, that he has DeAndre Swift, that he has Gerald Everett, that he has Rome Odunze. I mean, the weapons are endless for this young man. So it's okay as Bears fans to expect a little bit more, to want to see a little bit more out of Caleb Williams. And I do. I expect by the end of this season, if Caleb Williams is 70% of what he's been advertised by everybody who's ever been on a mic that is in love with this guy. Nick Wright says he's a top 5 quarterback already.
Yeah.
Like he hasn't taken a snap, says he's the top 5 now. He also said he was a top 10 quarterback last season. So that's neither here nor there. But to me, if I'm sitting there having a conversation about all of the pieces that are there and what we've seen quarterbacks have before in this city, yeah, I expect a little bit more. And I think that I am preparing myself by the end of this season to be probably the first person on the mic to just go, he's the greatest quarterback in Chicago Bears history. And there's not a question about it. But I also think that Ryan Poles has put him in this position to be that, to where, like I said, it's not for Justin Fields. We always looked around and said, how's this guy going to be able to succeed here? Offensive line issues, wide receiver problems, the different things that have come up throughout his career. For Mitchell Trubisky, we had the same arguments. For Jay Cutler, it was always, this guy's never got a left tackle. How the heck is he going to throw the football? When I look at Caleb, I'm like, it would be tough for me to find like mediocre quarterbacks in this league that could fail in what Caleb Williams is about to walk into. And so because of that, I think that he's going to be a really good quarterback. From what I've seen of him at the practices that mean absolutely nothing at this point, just getting loose and stuff like that, he looks like he's got really good touch on the ball, really good anticipatory throws. If that continues to play over throughout training camp, don't be surprised if we're not singing this guy's praises very, very highly going into his second season.
Yeah, and it's funny, man, just looking at the history of Bears quarterbacks, man, they never really had a good supporting cast around him. Maybe Cutler that one year, but he still had offensive line issues. But man, I'm so excited to see these weapons in action. And, adding a guy like Rome Odunze is really interesting to me because, Ryan Poles made a move for DJ Moore last year, made a move for Keenan Allen this year. It's going to be interesting to see him work with those two. Do you think he's going to have a big impact year one, or do you think it's going to take some time? Do you think he's going to take this year just to learn from the vets and then next year really take off?
I do expect Rome to have a bigger impact than most believe because there's a connection between Rome and Caleb that doesn't happen with everybody, right? They were drafted together. That means that they feel right now that their legacies are tied together. Now, is that going to be the case 10 years down the road? Probably not, right? Like, we know how the NFL goes. When a wide receiver gets good, I don't know if Rome's got a little diva to him or not. We'll see when he starts scoring NFL touchdowns and stuff like that. But we know how this game goes. But right now, you're coming in. He's a part of my draft class. If he's successful, I'm successful. There's going to be that mindset between those two. And I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunity for Rome Odunze because as tough as it is I love that we have Keenan Allen here. I love that we went out and traded for him. But the probably best case scenario the Bears are hoping for is Rome Odunze has a massive season and they can let Keenan Allen walk at the end of the year. Because now we get a compensation pick. Now we don't have to pay Keenan Allen. We've got 2 young wide receivers. One we're going to have to pay in DJ Moore, but the other one who's still controllable for 3 more years. That means we can attack both of the trenches as much as we want and maybe even invest a little bit more money in them. Like, I think that the best case scenario for the Bears, and it may sound a little harsh, that's the game of football, is that Rome Odunze does have that big season. I expect him to be a big part of the game plan. And if it works out that way, we'll be by the end of the season saying sayonara to Keenan Allen. We appreciate you for the year. Hopefully we're able to get you a ring in that time.
Yeah, man. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Keenan Allen. I wouldn't mind keeping him long-term depending on the price. But, a little storyline that's building with Rome Odunze, I want to know what you think about him as a returning option because, the Bears go out and they sign a guy like DeAndre Carter in free agency. They still have V12. They have guys like Dante Pettis, maybe Tyler Scott. With the new NFL kickoff rule, do you think it'd be smart to have Rome Odunze back there? Because I'm not going to lie, Pat, I'm scared of him getting hurt back there, man. I just would rather see him stick to receiver, learn right there. I don't want to take no risks. I know his favorite player is Devin Hester, man, but I'm scared. What do you think about it?
Rome ain't going to be back there.
All right, cool, man. I'm glad because it's worrying me, man.
I can guarantee you Rome is not going to be back there. The one thing cool. Now, I will say this, right? At the end of the day, what is it? The punt goes up. He's catching it. He's returning it. He gets tackled. It's football. At the end of it, we've seen wide receivers do this. We've seen top 10 wide receivers be a part of the kick return unit. It wouldn't be surprising to me at all. I think with the new rules, maybe you can work in a wrinkle in there as well where you feel a little bit more confident on the kickoff. I think that, with V12 and of course with DeAndre Carter, right? Those are two guys that have done that before. So I would look to leave those duties in their hands. But there is a fear around Velus that is this going to fall off the rails again? Is this going to be, you fumbling? Is this going to work out in our favor? Is Ryan Poles finally going to look like a genius, right? There's two sides of the coins that you can play. And I don't know. We won't know until the season gets here which side Velus is going to be on. But I will say this about the new kickoff rule. It's fast. And seeing it in person, seeing it at OTAs and minicamp, one block and Velus could be gone. Like this could be the moment where Velus finally becomes the Velus Jones that we hoped he was going to be. It's such an interesting rule, and I wonder how teams are going to adapt to it. Velus Jones could be the type of player that has, by week 9, 3 to 4 touchdowns on kickoff returns. Because legitimately, if you hit the hole the right way and there's one block there, he will not be caught.
Yeah, the speed is evident with V12, man. That was one of the more controversial draft picks of Ryan Poles. And like you said, I think this new kickoff rule is actually going to help him out a lot just because he just needs a little sliver of space and he's gone, man. That speed is very, very evident. But I want to switch over to the coaching staff. This offseason, there was a lot of question marks with Matt Eberflus.
Oh, yeah.
I for one, I'm not going to lie, I wanted the Bears to go after Harbaugh. I really did, man. But I don't really – it's not that I hate Flus. It's just, I thought they could have upgraded, and especially going in a new direction with a new quarterback. It's going to be interesting to see if they're tied to the hip together. Do you think it's playoffs or bust for Matt Eberflus, or do you think he gets a little more leeway since he has a rookie quarterback now?
I don't know if it's playoffs or bust. It's funny. Me and Herb Howard were talking about this yesterday or 2 days ago on the podcast. I don't think it's playoffs or bust for Matt Eberflus. I do think it's 10 wins or bust. And I mean a legitimate 10 wins. And I know everybody says, well, how could you not fire him? We fired Lovie Smith after a 10-win season. I can't believe we did that. I still can't. But how did it happen? Right? That's what you really got to look at. The Chicago Bears that season ended up being 7-1 through 8 games.
Yeah.
And they finished with 10 wins. That's a problem. If Matt Eberflus does that, Matt Eberflus will be fired. If Matt Eberflus has kind of a up and down season, but maybe goes through some rocky parts through the divisional games, which are all in the second half of the season, there's a chance for it. But I think at a minimum, you have to be in the mix heading into those division games. Like, to me, you need to be 5 to 6 wins minimum getting to week 9. Because now the real test is going to begin. Now you're going to be sitting there looking at Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit, all the teams that if you win 4 out of 6 of those games, you're in the playoffs.
True.
But you have to put yourself in a position to be successful heading into that backstretch of the season. So for me, I have a lot of the same questions about Matt Eberflus that you do. And the biggest one for me is, is he going to learn from his mistakes? He lost the game last season in week 11 of the season by making the same mistake that he made in week 4 of the season versus the Denver Broncos, right? He doesn't step in moments where his offensive coordinator doesn't throw a pass in the second half, and Justin Fields throws one pass the entire second half. It's to Tyler Scott to try and win the game in a desperation moment, and he drops it, right? Like you need to. I know that Matt Eberflus is a phenomenal defensive coordinator. I don't know if Matt Eberflus is a good head coach. And I still don't know if Matt Eberflus is a good head coach. And I'm sorry, a beard and a fade don't change that for me. I think it's giving him a swagger. I think it's giving him some confidence. I think it's a confidence that his team is exuding. And so right now, I love everything that we're seeing from him. But it matters when those moments hit, right? I don't forget about 14 straight losses. I don't forget about blowing games that you had a 90+% chance to win with 5 minutes to go in the game. Like those moments still stick out in my mind. And until you start some consistent winning, it's hard to forget those.
Yeah, man. You know, you cannot underestimate the power of a clean fade in a lineup, though, Pat. Come on, but
hey, listen, I'm struggling right now myself, brother. I gotta go to the barbershop on Saturday. I'm doing a little struggle right now myself. But you walk different.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
True. Listen, every guy knows this. You get the fade, you get the beard lined up, you walk different. Know. You talk different, right? You see, all of a sudden, you care to see people on the street. Like, what's going on, my boy? What's happening, man? No. How you been? You like waiting for him to comment on it? Like, I mean, like it's a different feeling when you feel what was Deion Sanders say? You look good, you feel good, you play good.
Exactly. I'm loving the new look by Flus, man. I'm glad you brought up Lovie Smith because I feel like we deserve to build this man a statue for what he did. That last game with the Texans and the Colts, man, I am still in shock that happened because, man, it put us on a trajectory to speed up this rebuild by a lot of years, man. But I think some additions that not a lot of people are talking about enough is the Bears got 2 new coordinators, man. You know, last year, Matt Eberflus, he took over as a DC because Alan Williams departed from the team. We bring in a guy like Eric Washington from Buffalo who puts a big emphasis on pass rush. And then Luke Getsy, he goes to Vegas. We bring in Shane Waldron from Seattle. I think he's going to be a lot more creative with the play calling, and he's going to build a playbook around Caleb Williams' strengths. Man, what do you think about these coordinators, man? Because I think they're going to make a big impact on this team, Pat.
The biggest things, my biggest takeaway from the coordinators right now is that the Chicago Bears, and specifically Ryan Pace to me, has done for Matt Eberflus what he did for Caleb Williams.
Yeah,
he's put him in a position where it's going to be very difficult to fail because none of these guys are Flus hires.
True.
Like the connection to Eric Washington is the closest you're going to get because he spent time with Rod Marinelli. But outside of that, right, like when you look at Shane Waldron has no connection to Matt Eberflus. Like this is we're going to get the best guy who's available hire. Those are usually not the coach's hires. Those are Ryan Poles hires. And so to me, you're trying to insulate your head coach because listen, there is a relationship that Poles and Flus have where they're like, we're going down on the ship together or we're going to sail into the sunset together. Like, and I love that Ryan Poles feels that way about him. But at the end of the day, you can see that they went out and tried to get the best pieces to make Matt Eberflus's life as easy as possible. And I love that. I think that that's what you should do. You want to have guys on a staff that have potential to be head coaches. And if they're not head coaches, can help your team be led the right way. And it's a very open environment. They're all in for everybody talking to me. The thing I love about bringing in Eric Washington is the part that the Bears missed for a few weeks when they end up losing their DC last season, right, is you didn't have that guy that could go out and have the foresight to scout next week's team. Flus had to go outside of the building to find somebody for that to help him out with scouting future teams and stuff like that. Now you've got somebody in-house. You got Eric Washington there. You've also got a coach who's going to place an emphasis on getting to the quarterback. He's a defensive line guru. And you love everything about that because what have been the Bears' biggest issues over the past few years? Getting pressure on the quarterback, getting that defensive line, getting after him helps a lot when you have Montez Sweat. But I think my thing with bringing the coordinators in is it allows Flus to kind of just say, okay, I know I got guys that know what they're doing, which means that I can focus on what I'm really good at. Yeah. And if he spends 70% of his time focusing on being a DC and 30% of his time knowing when the timeouts need to be put in, when you need to challenge a play, when you like the smaller minutiae during a game of when you need to be a head coach and when it's most important. I think that that's a great position to put a coach in, because then okay, this guy can operate at his strengths. The one thing, when you look at Bill Belichick, we always talk about Belichick, we always talk about Brady. Like, those guys were on the same side of the ball.
Yeah.
The guy who really is the mastermind in a lot of those championships by the end, right, is Josh McDaniels. Never had to worry about Belichick sitting there going, Josh, what the heck are you doing? He probably did it, but Josh is probably like, I know what I'm doing. Leave me alone. You know what I mean? Like those are the things that make the great head coaches. The great head coaches come with great coordinators. And I think that the Chicago Bears have tried to insulate Matt Eberflus with some great coordinators. You look at Shane Waldron on the other side, same thing. A guy who's going to run a similar style of offense. But let's be real, he's going to run it better. He's not going to call 4 screen passes against a freaking championship level defense. You know what I mean? Like, he's not, or should I say, he may call 4 screen passes. He's not going to call 4 in a row on the same play. You know what I mean? Like, that's really what you're looking for. By the way, Bears fans, if you were wondering, they say Luke Getsy's not doing well over there. I don't know if that puts a smile on your face or not, but from what I've heard, Getsy has been struggling a little bit over there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see these guys and how they incorporate their schemes going forward with the Chicago Bears. And I just think Matt Eberflus had so much on his plate last year, dealing with head coach responsibilities and DC responsibilities. So I'm glad you brought up that point, Eric Washington. He's going to be able to help Matt Eberflus out a lot. And Pat, I don't know if you've seen, there's been some smoke on Twitter, man. They were asking Jeffrey Simmons what he was going to say to Caleb Williams week 1, man. And he said he's going to bring up the nail painting and stuff.
I did see this.
Yeah, and dude, looking forward to the season. I was actually pretty excited seeing that we open up against the Tennessee Titans. I think there's a lot of good, really good matchups, between the two teams. As far as skill players go, I'd love to see our receiver room go against our corner rooms and vice versa. But what is a game that you're looking forward to this upcoming season that you have circled on your calendar?
I think the first one I'm really looking forward to, and it only works because I don't play, so it doesn't matter if I look ahead. I hope the Bears aren't doing this, but the first one that really is a marquee, sticks out in my mind game is the Houston Texans game. Yeah, to me, that is a game that you can't overlook it. That's whether you were looking for quarterback or not, that's the quarterback you could have taken and chose to trade the pick for. I believe that it worked out. You now have Caleb Williams. You now have Rome Odunze. You're now the team that can be built very much like the Texans are. But when I look at that Houston team and how he got off, how CJ Stroud was able to get off to an amazing start last season, I think you do have to say, that's a game that's going to be a major game. Outside of that, I mean, listen, I'm focused on the entire second half of the season. The division games are the most important games in the world to me now, because you're not going to see a divisional opponent until week 10, I believe. Yeah, that means that you need to prepare for all-out warfare. And the one thing the Bears were not for a good chunk of last season was prepared. Yeah. So I need to I'm really looking at when we get into that divisional map. I don't remember. I don't have it here, so I don't remember. I think we start off with the Vikings. I may be mistaken, but I think we play the Vikings first. But to me, that first divisional game is going to set the tone for how you're going to look to go through the rest of those divisional games. Yeah, first divisional game is this year? Oh, yeah, this is this year's schedule. So we play the Packers first, November 17th. Play the Packers first at home. Oh, damn. That's going to set the tone for how you're going to go through. Because then you got Packers, Vikings, Lions. You got the Niners in there. Vikings, Lions, Seahawks in there. Finish out with the Packers. That Packers game, I don't know if there's been a more, and now this is just to this season, this is not to the future, but to this season, I don't know if there's been a more important Packers game. I think last year's you were hoping that it was going to be this level of importance, but the Bears didn't take it that serious. Starting things off, divisional versus your divisional opponents versus your hated rival who has basically just kicked the crap out of us for 20 years. You need, to me, a win there would not only be a vote of confidence for Matt Eberflus, it would be a vote of confidence in the books of Caleb Williams. We heard what Montez Sweat once has said about wanting to go out there and beat the Packers. I don't know if you saw this on Twitter earlier. I forget, one of the Packers players, one of his guys who he's friends with,
Preston
is
Smith.
was it Preston Smith?
It was, yeah.
Preston Smith tweeted out, "Oh, how y'all gonna beat us if you're not even showing up for the jogging session already?"
Yeah, for the sprints.
And Montez quoted him back and was like, "Enjoy your little streak while you got it." I went with the 12 p.m. crew or something like that, right? Like,
Yeah.
But the fact that they're already joined, like this is building up. This is turning into a real rivalry again, and I'm hoping that it turns into one where the Bears can finally get some wins in the rivalry, because we haven't seen it. The Bears have been so beaten down by the Packers over the years, they haven't been able to chirp.
Yeah.
They've wanted to chirp. They're like, what do you want us to say? It's Aaron Rodgers. You know what I mean? Like, no, like fight back. Like this year, it feels like we might actually be able to fight back.
Yeah, man. It's hard, not to get excited every time the Bears and Packers play each other. And it's definitely taking a toll on my mental health, man. We need to get a win soon, man, because I don't know how much more I could take of this, Pat. But, I know you're a busy man. I know you got the NBA draft second round tonight. So I'm going to let you go. But I got one more question before I let you go, man.
Let's do it.
I don't know if you saw the NFL Network. They put up a little picture, a little animation with their Mount Rushmore Chicago Bears. They had Sid Luckman, Walter Payton, Mike Singletary, Dick Butkus. I want to know, Pat, who's on your Mount Rushmore as far as Chicago Bears go? Who's the four guys, that had the most impact on you? Not even the best players, just maybe your favorite players growing up. But yeah, who's your Mount Rushmore?
Oh, the Chicago four, Bears? Just my four favorites?
Just your four, man. Just got to pick four. I know
it's
tough.
I'm younger, so that means that I can't put I'm gonna put Peyton on there out of respect. Walter Payton, I've gone back. My dad's the guy that VHS'd a lot of the games, right? So I've gotten to see Walter Payton in very grainy television back in the day. So I'm gonna still put Walter Payton on there because I think seeing how he ran, he ran like the city was on his back. And that's there's only certain players that you get that feeling from. I can't even explain it really, but when I watched him run, it was like he knew it's me or nothing, and I'm not gonna let it be nothing. And I've always had the utmost respect for Walter Payton. Give me Brian Urlacher, of course. Lack is just. He shouldn't have been able to do Brian Urlacher is like a bumblebee. You know how bumblebees, scientists say they shouldn't be able to fly.
Yeah.
We have no idea why they can't. He shouldn't have been able to do some of the stuff that he was able to do, but he was just so freaking amazing. Covered the field like a gazelle, could run like the wind. Had the leadership skills of a lion. Brian Urlacher was an absolute monster. You got to throw him on that list. Give me the running mate as well, Lance Briggs. I think you got to have Briggs on the list when you're talking about favorite players, because, to me, there's no Urlacher without Briggs, and we've seen those moments where it's no Urlacher without Briggs, and he might be one of the unsung heroes that maybe didn't get enough of the attention. But if you look up greatest duos of all time, they're still on the list. And to me, how Lance Briggs was able to. They were telepathic. It's so funny doing a show with him now because I get to ask him all the questions, and he'll tell you I would just give Lack the look and be like, I'm a go, and he'd be like, all right, well, don't be wrong. You know what I mean? And then Lance ends up getting a sack. Lance has laid somebody out. I think he's got to be on the list because I don't think you get the greatness that you saw of Brian Urlacher. He still would have been absolutely great, but the heights that they were able to reach as far as defenses and the standards they set. Without Lance Briggs, four is tough.
Yeah, I know. The last spot's always tough.
Because here's my dilemma with four, right?
Okay.
Excitement is Devin. There's no question. Devin Hester is the most exciting Bear I've ever seen in my life. He is there's no way you can't talk about the Chicago Bears in the 2000s without having Devin Hester and everything he was able to accomplish, and him going into the Super Bowl now, or into the Hall of Fame now. But Peanut Tillman was an absolute monster.
Yeah, Peanut Punch, man.
And God dang it, am I going to leave Devin off of this list, bro?
Dude, it's tough, bro. I don't know.
I think I'm going to go. Nah, well, you said most exciting. You said the Bears that I enjoyed the most. Give me Devin Hester as far as enjoying the most, as far as excitability, as far as that built my fandom, because I don't think there is the Super Bowl year without that rookie season. And that did at that point, I'm 12 when the Bears went to the Super Bowl, 11, something like that. And I mean, it was the greatest thing of all time. And Devin Hester is giving me it has to be Devin. He's giving me the best memory I have as a Bears fan. I wasn't alive in 85 to see Walter Payton and them boys go out there and dominate. So my best memory as a Bears fan is lights flashing, ball in the air, Jeff Joniak saying, "Here we go." Yeah. And then there he goes. The Chicago Bears returning the opening kick of the Super Bowl is probably the best moment I have. And it tells you, because number 2 in my mind, it tells you how bad it's been here, dog. Number 2 in my mind is a meaningless game at the end of the season versus the Minnesota Vikings. And Jay Cutler threw a Hail Mary to Devin Aromashodu.
Throwback.
That's my second best Bears memory since I've been a fan.
You like that one over the Kevin White Hail Mary, almost the Mitch Trubisky to Kevin White?
I don't give a what about that. As far as I'm talking about just the single play moment. Those are my single play moment memories. Of course, the Arizona game that year is one of my favorite games of all time. That's tough. I had to leave Peanut off of that list. Peanut Tillman was somebody that he could cover Megatron one-on-one, bro.
Yeah.
That's not normal, dog. I don't think I think Peanut needs to be in the Hall of Fame, and there's not enough of a clamoring for him to be in there. I feel, outside of his teammates and me. One, there's a punch named after. There's an entire move named after him that is in the Hall of Fame. And 2, nobody covered Megatron one-on-one. There's teams that covered Megatron 3-on-1.
Yeah, literally, and that still didn't work.
That was a monster, man. That was a monster. That team was loaded, man. Those would be my 4, though. Give me Walter. I'll throw on there for not seeing him, but still out of respect. Lance, Brian, and Devin.
Yeah, man. Hey, that's a solid
all those
list.
Players played well over 10 years ago.
True. Hey, that's a solid list, though, Pat. Cannot deny that. But Pat the Designer, man, thank you for joining me, brother. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me on, man.
Of course, brother.